Episode 18. Doing well. Hope you're doing well. Hope your week's been amazing since the last episode. If not, do not worry. Just keep going, stay strong, and you'll get through this storm, whatever that may be. Today's episode is going to go through Marcus Aurelius and religion and how they intertwine, and how Stoicism and Christianity can connect. I've done this before, touched it in another episode, I think, and I did about if Epictetus was Christian, and it looks like he is, which is good, which is cool. Or like, if there was a Stoic to be Christian, it would be him, with the amount of times he mentions God. The first thing I'm going to go into is what I read from the introduction of Meditation by Marcus Aurelius. This is the Penguin's Classic version, translated by Martin Hammond. I do really recommend it, it's worth the money. But yeah, I'm going to go through the thing that I read that made me think of making this video, and yeah. So listen up. Marcus Aurelius also exerted a powerful spell over two Christian intellectuals of the 19th century, Matthew Arnold and Ernest Renan. Both were powerfully attracted to the deep religious sentiment they detected in the Meditations. And when I read that, I'm like, yes, that is true. There's definitely some Christianity aspects in that, in Meditations. It talks about lust, it talks about virtues, it talks about, I remember it's something about, if you find something better than the virtues, if you find something greater than this, go to it all. And I don't think it was intending God, but you can kind of use that in that way of God is like a greater thing, so go to him, if you know what I mean. Which I wrote down in my notes. So that's another thing. But anyways, it says this after as well. We see Marcus at the end of his life stretching out his arms for something beyond, out of love for the further shore. This is a quotation from Virgil, but the further ashore Arnold had in mind is not the shore across the infernal river of Archeron, I think that's how it says, but the shore of the light of Christianity. Now this was near the end of Marcus Aurelius' death. Now it was either before he was bedridden or whatever, it was because he died of the plague, in case you didn't know, but either it's like in the last days of him being alive, he either reached out to somewhere, or in his deathbed, he reached out for something. And that's what I get from that, it's one of those things that it means. But basically it's saying it was reaching out for something, and how it might have been Christianity, it might have been the light of God or whatever. And I think if that is so, and that's true, that kind of explains everything, how maybe God was in him, like the Holy Spirit was in him, but it never realised it or something, didn't it? Because obviously it talks about gods and other stuff like that, and I think he only speaks about Christianity once in this, but maybe the Holy Spirit was always in him and just didn't realise until the last moment, something like that, I don't know. But he was a truly wise man, and it says in the Bible that wisdom is fear of God. Now, whether he feared God or not, I do not know. I didn't meet him in person, but even if he didn't fear God, he was still wise. Now, maybe not the great wisdom that God can give you or something, I don't know, but you can't look at Marcus Aurelius and you can't read this book and think he wasn't wise, because he was probably one of the most wisest human beings ever. And maybe God was in him, that the Holy Spirit was in him, and that caused him to be wise. Maybe he did fear God, I don't know. But it was very wise, and obviously, like it says in this, there's Christian traditions in this book, and I read it, I've seen it, it talks about lust and all that, and like I said, I mentioned this in the episode about Epictetus, and Epictetus in his book, was it The Teachings of a Stoic, it even talks about not having sex before marriage, which is a very religious thing, about waiting until marriage. So I do think Stoicism and Christianity do link together, especially, even Marcus Aurelius. A bit ago, last year, whether it was the devil or just me being stupid, I don't know, but basically, I'm religious and I study Stoicism. I've got a Stoic ring on, about Amor Fati, and then I wear this cross every day, and then even on my watch, as you can see, it's a cross on that as well. So yeah, anyways, I had a thing of fighting between them. I couldn't pick between them both. It was like they were both arguing. Whenever I did Stoicism, it was like I was going against God, and whenever I'd do like use like religious stuff, I'd go against Stoicism, and I'm just going back and forth and fighting and everything. It was horrible. And that's what caused me to go into and study the similarities between Stoicism and Christianity, and I even wrote an ebook on it. So yeah, I think like the Stoic Christian or something. I'll put it up just to show you. And then after that, I think I included a bit of a video in the podcast, talk about it a bit. And then after that, I went into, seeing it going through if Epictetus was a Christian, because I remember reading his book, and he spoke to God so many times, like the God. He like even said the God is the God of all gods and humans. So he acknowledged God's presence, and in this, in Meditations, now Marcus does, like the Stoics did, like praise gods, like man-made gods, I suppose, or something like that. And I get that that's where people like argue with it, and that's where people can struggle with it, and that's what I did. But you don't have to, obviously follow the gods. And even within that, when they talk about them, there's still stuff you can kind of apply to God, like praising him and like accepting that as a part of you and stuff like that. So it can help in that sense, maybe even of praising the God, whilst they were talking about praising their gods. But never ever seen in Stoicism, never ever seen that they disrespected God. They didn't use like the capital G for God, for being the God, with lowercase g's. They never said anything against God, saying that it's false, saying that it's fake or anything like that. It's just one of those things. So I get it might upset you, or something that they didn't like believe, maybe not believe, but like acknowledge the God, which I can kind of get, and like praise the God as they worshipped others, but they never disrespected him. So, and they never used his name in vain or anything like that. So yeah. And like I said, Epictetus, he spoke about him a whole lot and loved him basically. So yeah, but I do think it can go together, and I'm glad that I researched all this stuff and all that. Like even in the Bible, the Stoics in the Bible, and I've said this before in the last episode as well, but I'll go through it again just in case you missed it. But even the Stoics are in the Bible, I think with Peter who went, I think it was, if I'm wrong I'll put it up who went. But anyways, it went to tell them about Christ and like his teachings and all that, after his death. But anyways, and took him up on a hill. I can't remember the name of the hill, but yeah, took him up an important hill, and they listened to him, and I think with Peter, but yeah, he acknowledged and liked how they had faith in a God, so it was a good thing. But they spoke back and forth, they listened to each other, they didn't disrespect each other, and I think that's like a good sign. They didn't like send him away or anything. They accepted him and they listened to his words and took into interest. So that's another good sign. But yeah, I do think that Stoicism and Christianity do go together. If you're gonna study Stoicism, it's not going against religion. I generally don't think it is. However, if it did come to a thing of you have to pick between one or the other for whatever stupid reason, just say hypothetically, I would say obviously pick religion over Stoicism, because it's God. Yeah, there's nothing that can beat that. Worshipping God. So yeah, obviously if you had to pick between one, I'd tell you to pick religion. I'd pick religion. However, you don't have to though. You can have both, and I think it's amazing. Like Stoicism helps me with Christianity, and Christianity helps me with Stoicism. Like they go together so well. So yeah, I just really appreciate it, and I want to go through that with you again. Like even like Marcus Aurelius, because he is probably the most popular Stoic everyone studies. It was the first Meditations. I get my other copy out real quick. This was the first Stoic book I ever had. So yeah, which I do like, but I do prefer the other translation, this one, which costs like twice as much as this. Because when I first got I'll go into this. When I first got the book, I looked for the cheapest because I was broke. I had like no money. I could afford a book, which is good. It's good that it's cheap enough. But I just basically found the cheapest one, and I kind of like the cover of this anyway. It's pretty cool, and I bought it. I didn't even look into it properly, which I should have done. But basically, this is the Victorian English, the Old English translation by George Long. And well, I did read it, and the positives were I did learn Victorian English, which is good. But there was definitely some stuff I missed out, which I can now pick up in this book, because this is a modern translation by Martin Hammond. So there's George Long and Gregory Hayes. They're the two most popular, and then right behind is Martin Hammond. Like, they're like the top three. Like, there's a bunch of different translations, but you know, Gregory Hayes and Martin Hammond, I recommend those two because they're the modern English. And if you're going to start off, it's best to start off with them and then go on to like another translation of like Old English or something like that, or even if it's in a different language, you can go that far, because it is good to, like, these Stoic books, especially like Meditations and that, to have different translations to see things differently. Like, obviously I'm going to get more out of this one, you know, I'll get more out of that one 100%, but I saw when skimming through and that and comparing a little bit, there is some stuff in this that I jotted down that I understood that I probably wouldn't have done in other translations. So it's good to have both. But if you're going to start off, especially if it's your first time, spend the money because it's worth it. It's more expensive, yeah, but it's worth it to get a modern translation, especially one like this one, which goes into introduction of like Marcus Aurelius. It tells you pretty much about his entire life as much as they can. Like even like this bit that I'm talking about today, how it went into like Christianity and all that. I didn't get that from this one. You know, this one just does this. This has probably like 50 pages or more of going into introductions. Where technically the introduction of this is just that. It's just one page, and it's about how I was an emperor and a Stoic philosopher, and I was the last rule of the 5 good emperors, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, but it is good. It is a good translation. This, I'm not gonna kick it down because it did get me into it. You know, it got me into Meditations and Marcus Aurelius and all that. But if I could go back and either wait a bit longer or, you know, buy like the more expensive copy, I would have done. So yeah, but this is my favourite copy anyways, because I found out this book about from Eamon Gadzhi, and he had this version, and I'm like, wow, I'd want to get that. But so yeah, I finally got it. I'm loving reading it, and I'm gonna just read it every day. You know, even after I've finished reading it, I'm probably just gonna read like a page a day, go through something, because you can just apply this to life, you know, like you can with the Bible. You know, if Stoicism was a religion, let's say, and if it was to have a Bible, it would be this. But obviously I'm not saying this is the Bible, you know, but you get the gist. I don't want to confuse you too much and ramble on, but that is overall it. This is today's episode. It may be a bit shorter than what it is normally, but it's an important thing to go through. So overall, you know, you can study Stoicism and as well as being religious, and proof of that. There's proof in this and in the Bible that you can, you know, with how the teachings link to each other, and how even this book attracted to Christians 19th century, as it says, you know, and there must be an important if it's literally written in this. So yeah, 2 Christian intellectuals, remember the name, Matthew Arnold and Ernest Renan or Renan or whatever. But yeah, if you're watching this and you're Christian, you can be a Stoic. If you're watching this and you're a Stoic, you can still be a Christian. And Marcus Aurelius, whether he was religious or not, to the God, a Christian, whatever, I don't know. It might be at the end, like it says, like reached out to it. But there's definitely some Christian wisdom in there. There's some wisdom no matter what. I don't care who you are, what you do, what religious you are, whether you're Christian, Catholic, if you're into Buddhism, or if you're a Muslim, I don't care. This book helps no matter what, and it can help those religions as well. So yeah, but that is that. That is today's episode, and hopefully I haven't confused you, and hopefully I haven't rambled on for long enough, because I do have that habit. But yeah, as always, I'll give you a book recommendation and a bit of wisdom. And the book I recommend is, I kind of already recommend this anyways, but Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. get the modern English version, and yeah, Martin Hammond translation, because I forgot about that translation. I'd normally recommend either the George Long or the Gregory Hayes, but out of those three, I'll go with Martin Hammond. Just, yeah, it's different, but like, because I think Gregory Hayes is more popular, but it's still good, you still understand it, and it also gives you another view. And after I've read this, maybe I'll even get the Gregory Hayes translation. I don't know, but yeah, that is, when it's a hardcover, it's got a little string thing in to use as a bookmark, so it's amazing. So that's the book I recommend today. Meditations, a modern translation version. Wisdom I'll give you, of course, is from this book, and it's about praise and how it doesn't make you better or worse or whatever. It's just a thing. So just listen on. Everything in any way beautiful has its beauty of itself, inherent and self-sufficient. Praise is no part of it. Then skip a bit and listen to this. Does an emerald lose its quality if it is not praised? And what of gold, ivory, purple, a lyre, a dagger, a flower, a bush? What that means is, well, obviously, praise does not make you more quality, don't make you better, alright? Like it says, not praising an emerald or a diamond or a bit of gold or whatever does not make it lose its quality. If someone doesn't praise you, you're not going to lose the quality, the goodness of you. And if someone does praise you, it's not going to increase your quality. It comes from within, your quality and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. But that's a nice thing to go through, understanding how praise does not make you better and no praise does not make you worse. It's relevant. So, don't worry about praise and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's the wisdom from that book. A bit of wisdom today in the book recommendation and all that. But, yeah, I hope to see you next episode. I hope you enjoyed watching. And yeah, and hopefully you got a better insight into Stoicism, Christianity, and how they can work together. So, yeah, now, probably got to do a bit of other things. Hopefully I fix my car today, or a big part of it. And then after that, I'll probably edit this, or maybe edit it tomorrow. Anyways, it'll be up, so don't worry. And I'll see you next episode. Episode 19 up next. So yeah, anyways, peace.